Fixes anything, duct tape. It's a wonderful.
It does.
Right, I have pressed us live and I've posted the thing, so it should be recording now. But you can hear us chatting amongst ourselves for a second, people. If you're watching this back, because I'm sorting things out.
Yeah,
Hello, random strangers on the internet.
It's live these days, isn't it?
So are we being broadcast on that YouTube?
Yeah,
channel
on my YouTube channel now. Let me just double check it myself.
How
yes,
exciting.
we are live. There we go. What the hell? I put "we are live now" and then my Twitter sent it out in Spanish as well.
Handy.
We clearly have a lot of Spanish fans out there.
What in the world?
Hola.
Okay, maybe that was Google Hangouts doing it itself. I did put it in Spanish. Right, okay. I've posted up on Twitter, we're live. I posted up on Facebook thing, we're live. I'll put it on all the other things, the pages and stuff. And then hopefully people will actually be...
Ask some questions.
Yes,
We
yeah.
could always start.
I've got a couple, obviously, that are from that we got, and obviously there's general ones that I can just ask. But
Sure.
okay. Sorry, people. Those who have are already watching, we will get started in just a second.
It's not Spanish, it's Portuguese.
It's Portuguese?
Yeah.
Ah.
Okay.
We have a lot of Portuguese fans as well.
Yeah, I posted it, "we are live," and then the link, and then straight after my Twitter sent out like something in Portuguese. Okay, fair enough.
I started a direct broadcast.
Oh,
Well, we appear to
okay.
be coming in very well in Connecticut, so...
Okay.
Hello, Ken. Thanks for tuning in.
Oh.
Ken, I believe Ken is who's going to be playing. He's going to be playing Ken, I believe, which is kind of accurate. Just put the D on front of his name. But
Did you just save yourself a lot of time and just cast him based on the name?
No. He has like this really cool, deep villain voice. So I was like, yeah, that'll do. Yeah. So,
Well, I look forward to hearing the deep villainous voice.
Okay, right.
Passed by a process of, that'll do.
No. There was a bunch of them, but his was the best one. So.
Let me tell you, that's how I got in.
Right, okay, since I've posted it up now, we will, may as well get going, so. Okay, I know we're already live anyway, but I'll do an actual proper intro now. Hello everybody, and welcome to this, and this is the live video Q&A here on YouTube, Google Hangouts. I almost called it Handouts then, I don't know what that would be. Google Hangouts with the cast and crew of the X-Men audio drama. We'll talk about some other stuff as well, but generally, just because the season 1 has just come to an end, we did one during the mid-season with myself and with Stephen and Declan, but this is really more of a chance to get to see the actors, and also it's live on YouTube with video, so we'll go ahead and introduce everybody. Well, first of all, the people who we had with us last time, we've got the composer of the series with his nice avatar of the album cover there. We've got Declan, who does all the music.
Hi. Don't know what to say.
Yeah, just hello, Alden. We've also got Stephen with us.
Hello, everybody of the internet.
For those who don't know, he does behind-the-scenes stuff, but mainly he plays Beast on the series and a couple of X-characters as well. We also have with us, we have one of the main X-Men in Cyclops himself. We've got Omri.
How's it going?
And his counterpart in life, we've got Jean Grey, Natalie.
Hello.
And last but certainly not least, he does a lot of voices, but the main one he does was Toad. We've got Thaddeus Gilmore with us.
Pleasure.
Do you prefer Thaddeus or do you prefer TY?
I go by Thaddeus, but Ty was just the name that hadn't been taken, and that's normally a nickname from my parents. So just go with Thaddeus.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay then, so I've obviously got a couple of questions lined up from both just in general and from listeners. Hopefully live people will join and ask us other ones to keep things going as well. But I'll just go around the room. We'll go to the people who weren't on last time, obviously, because both Stephen and Mckellen kind of got to say their piece a little bit last time. So we'll start, let's go backwards. I'll start with Thaddeus. How did you get involved in the series, and what was your interest, and how you enjoyed it so far? Just a general overview. Thaddeus, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead. You first.
Actually, would you mind skipping me? I just got a phone call.
Oh, good. Fair enough. This is going extremely well. Okay, so we'll go to Natalie then.
Hello. My name's Natalie. I'm a professional actress doing voice acting stuff, bits and pieces as well. I originally was in the Star Trek Lost Enterprise. So people who've listened to both may recognise me from that as well. I played Kai Erlan, and I also snuck in again at the end playing the water, being all evil. So I really enjoyed doing the Star Trek thing. When Carl originally posted it on Casting Call Pro, I was like, something voiceover and nerdy, appropriate to my interests, why not? And then when he turned around and said he was doing an X-Men one, I was just like, ah. I watched a lot of the 90s cartoon as a child. Absolutely loved it. And couldn't turn down the opportunity to take part in this one as well. So here I am.
Yeah, you definitely. As soon as you sent in the audition, there was a few, obviously, about 10 other people who tried out for Jean Grey, but definitely you were the one who stood above the rest. I mean, I knew you obviously from doing the Star Trek one, and obviously I knew your audio quality was good. But just again, you were able to hit that. The voice of sort of the young, naive girl, but I think definitely you'll be able to do, obviously, because we saw you as a villain in the other series, you'll be able to do the more deeper, darker stuff when she takes the turn that everybody knows that Jean takes in Season 2. So, right, so go to Omri next. What about you?
Very similarly, I started off in the Star Trek audio drama as Captain Thomas Johnson of the Enterprise B, which was great fun. When you have the opportunity to captain your own spaceship, you don't normally say no.
Speaking of which, hopefully you can see this. That one.
Aha, very nice.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, it sounded like a very fun project to get involved with. I could record from home, which is always fun. So whenever I had a bit of time, I could do that. And then, obviously, you talked about further projects, and you, of course, enticed me with Batman lingering in the future. And in the interim, you mentioned X-Men, and, also growing up with the series as a kid, that good old 90s, classic. Love it.
There's a reason I chose that for the main theme.
Exactly. So, that was a natural thing to go for, having had such a great experience on the Star Trek project. And as Gambit wasn't available, I decided to go for Cyclops, and it worked out quite well.
Yeah, you're definitely a great Cyclops. I think you've obviously got the natural American voice, which you're never going to beat. Obviously authentic, and obviously you've just got that kind of, as with the reason I chose you for the captain, you've got that, guy next door, but heroic kind of voice down, which works out perfectly for the character. And then obviously you showed you can go deeper with Batman, so which are perfect as well. Which, by God, when I turn that one up, when I do the Long Halloween one, the bass on your voice when I turn it up for that one. But so Thaddeus, you're back.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Go ahead, say your piece.
I've actually been doing a lot of storytelling in local theaters for a while, but my passion has always been with cartoons and voice acting. So when I saw this whole thing about the X-Men, I thought, oh, it's a gamble, why not? And lo and behold, I got to be a villain and several other voices, and then as we discovered later, I will be doing several villains.
Hmm. Yeah, right. Yeah, right now it's looking like you're going to be playing Arcade in the next series.
Oh,
And then
brilliant.
a couple of others as well. So yeah, you're one of the guys. You and Drew. Obviously, we've got the main guys, and these guys do other voices as well on the side. But they've got so many lines to their main characters that they kind of don't need anymore. Whereas there's guys like you who only have smaller roles. You and Drew and John, and who do 10 voices over the series and do a lot of different ones, because I think you and Drew both are much better as kind of character actors as opposed to playing the lead necessarily.
It's cool to have a Steve Bloom or two on your cast, but you always want a D. Bradley Baker.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, look at Long Halloween. You're playing Alberto Falcone. You're playing Milos. You're playing Calendar Man. All different ranges of the spectrum. All right then. So, Stephen, obviously we heard your take on things last time. Anything else you want to add to what you said last time that you didn't get a chance to say?
Nothing springs immediately to mind. Everything that I said in the last podcast pretty much still stands. But for those that haven't heard it before, I'm ex-military, got into voice acting completely by accident, and due to my voice type, I tend to have the low, rough, gruff type voices, and that's just the way I'm built naturally. That's just the way it is. And yeah, it pretty much is exactly the same as it was in the last podcast, in the last interview.
I can't wait to hear you as Jubilee in season 2, though. I mean, it's just going to be great.
Oh, we've got Kitty Pryde first. And speaking of Kitty Pryde, Jeannie, who she came in and did a couple of extra voices on the last one. She was like Angel's girlfriend and things like that. She's going to be doing Emma Frost in season 2. And her daughter, she sent me a thing saying, "Oh, if you're looking for a teenager, I've got a 12-year-old daughter. If you'd be interested." She sent she got a 12-year-old daughter sit down at a microphone and record for Kitty, and you can't get better than authentic. So yeah, so we've got a Kitty Pryde who is actually of the actual age range, which thanks to Jeannie. So yeah, that'll be good stuff. Yeah, we'll obviously talk about all that's to come. But Declan, obviously, for those who haven't heard, we'll go to you. The entire series is done now. I mean, definitely for you, you've had ones where there's been less music, but definitely I think overall you definitely been one of the stars of the series, because one thing that makes our series, I think, stand above a lot of the others is that our music is originally composed and it sounds like a movie score, and it's got, it's not just generic royalty-free tracks underneath this thing. So yeah, I mean, fantastic work on the finale, especially. Dear Lord, the amount of music that went into that. When the Sentinels are landing and the music goes up to like full blast and this giant battle's going on, so superb work on that. But yeah, what are you feeling? What's your feelings on the series so far, and now that we've got to the end of the first series?
Series has been great. I was cutting together the soundtrack the other day, and I realised that I'd written 2.5 hours music for the whole series in total. So I'll end up cutting that down to about an hour and a half. Before the project, I'd been writing for mostly dramatic films that didn't. The music was very. Trying to think of how to put it. It was very simplistic, and it didn't give me much artistic freedom on the projects before. So I was looking for a more heroic and action focused project. So
something where you could be the star, basically.
Something where I could write more.
You could hear the music and be like, wow,
Yeah, Um, in the previous projects, I barely got out of one key, so that's
Mhm.
very limiting. So when I saw this, I leapt at it, and the first thing you said you wanted was a cover of the 90s theme,
Mhm.
like an orchestral version. So I worked on that immediately, and I think I've
Because you hear that and you automatically think of X-Men. I mean, there's been several themes. I think now the X2 theme, now it's been used in Days of Future Past and that as well. It's become, another big X-Men
it's been
theme.
awesome.
But I think definitely the, the
Yeah.
90s theme, when you hear that theme, you think X-Men, no matter how many other things have come since. I mean, that series, I mean, the animation is terrible because it's a mid-90s animated cartoon that had, like, absolutely no budget to it, you could tell. But the music is definitely, and the storytelling is what stands above a lot of the others, and what's makes it nostalgic for definitely our generation.
Yeah, certainly. Read the first script and immediately from brilliant writing and brilliant performances by all of you, started writing music, and it's great to come back for the second season.
Yes, certainly we've been talking about that. All right, so I have a question here from a viewer that sent it in on the Facebook page. Let me just bring it up. Yes, let me just bring it up here. Would help if I'd had this loaded in the meantime. Professional job here. Right, so the question is from a viewer called Christopher Stone. Thank you for your interest and following us. He says, here's for one for any of the actors who are willing to take it. I assume there's no reason why you're not, unless he's going to ask a personal question. What is the biggest challenge for you in portraying your characters? So we'll go backwards from what we did last time. We'll go to Stephen first.
Wow. I think the toughest thing for me, especially for talking about season 2 with Colossus, has been...
Oh, yeah, Stephen will be playing Colossus, by the way, for those of you who don't know.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, for the season 2 thing, to be a believable character, it's really, really difficult, because being a fan of audiobooks and being a fan of audio productions and things like that, I know that if a voice doesn't sound right, it actually pulls you out of the illusion, the story that you're being told.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually really, and I mean really important for me to get this voice right, because yes, he's a big, gruff man, but he's also gentle and kind and such a complex character, and his naivety comes through in the story as well, because he's been pulled from his farm. It's basically Colossus's kind of origin story as well, and all that story to becoming a part of the X-Men. It's really difficult to get that just so, and to get it believable, because, well, if I was to do Colossus in my own normal voice, it would be rather weird, because Colossus is
Well,
Russian.
yeah,
It would
obviously,
just
yeah.
be totally jarring for the listener. Yeah, it's, for me, I got told a piece of advice once which sticks with me to this day, and that is, it's not about doing a voice. It's about if you can do Shakespeare in that voice. Now, what that means is all your tone, all your intonation, your performance must go into the voice. You can't just do a squeaky voice for 5 minutes, say a few catch lines or something like that. No, you have to give a performance in that voice. And that's probably, that's one of the toughest things for all of us is, well, okay, I hold my hands up there. It's really hard for me. I don't know if it could be easy.
Do you find Colossus harder than, obviously, Beast to do?
Yes, I do. In all honesty, I find Colossus a lot harder than Beast, mostly down to the fact that we've zeroed in on the voice. We've kind of got the guy that he is as Colossus himself and his human self as Peter. So we've zeroed in on that voice, but it's really, I think it's more down to my confidence right now, really, with the voice. I need to be able to really have a conversation effectively in Peter's voice. And that's one of the things that I think is most crucial to me to nail a believable character.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Russian accent, I mean, and all that kind of stuff, and it was hard to choose between you and a couple of others for that. But I think even though you've obviously already been Beast, and then obviously when Beast comes back, you're gonna be talking to yourself at some point. But I think you got a distinctive enough voice where it'll work, and you can't really tell that it's you. I mean, obviously now people who are watching this will know, but or people who know your name. But you know, when you turn up, people won't be able to tell that it's you talking to yourself, which we've had a couple of times, and definitely I think you've got the accent down enough. It's just about fine. It's just about doing it. You know, practice makes perfect and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
but yes.
It certainly does, definitely.
But yes, Colossus Season 2. Obviously, we'll get on to all that stuff in a second. Right, so Natalie, why don't we go to you? Same question. What's the most difficult thing in portraying your character?
Well, actually, it is going to touch on some of the Season 2 stuff. Because it has been looking at the most iconic moments and the pressure of getting them right without aping what's come before too much. I must have spent a lot, probably at least 3 times as long working on the now and forever I am Phoenix line. One line, one scene. I spent about 3 times as long just working on that and trying to figure out in my head how can I make sure this feels right to me, but isn't just copying the performance of countless other actresses that you've heard say that line, and also keeping it based in the reality that we've created. Because one of the most fun things I've found about playing Jean Grey in this series is actually, for me, in the 90s series, the one that I loved, I was always a rogue person. Like, rogue was my gal. And Jean Grey was kind of always, like, she had this amazing Phoenix story arc, but other than that, she was generally kind of a bit of a wet fish. And she was usually staying at home, like, with the Professor, or she was running into battle and then going, Scott! And that was it.
Yeah.
So I've really enjoyed the scenes that you've been writing, giving me a chance to explore her as an actual person, and having, yes, she has weaknesses and weak moments, but she also has this incredible strength in her as well, and the relationship with Scott, because I had never read the original comic books before, so I didn't know until you started working on this about the original backstory and the original team and how it all started. So that's been enjoyable for me, is finding the depth within the character. So then how to create the iconic moment, the turning to Phoenix moment, but still keeping the reality and not turning into the cartoon again. And that's something I'll probably be working with you over the next week or so, sending you what I've done so far and going,
But you know, again, I will be probably less critical than you, as long as it hits the tone. It's like lately, Rex, who's going to be playing Wolverine, has been sending me his stuff, and obviously a lot of his stuff is just iconic, just him saying "bub" and the roars and the kind of stuff. But he hits it on the nail on the head. It's absolutely perfect, and I think that and Omri, you've been finding the same thing with playing Batman. It's just kind of once you. Like, Jean is less iconic than Phoenix almost, because Phoenix is the X-Men storyline. So I feel like once you reach that kind of, you're playing the most iconic moment in X-Men comics at that point. I could definitely see that. But no, I'll definitely be less critical than you. Like, as long as I've got a good version of it, I can work with it. Yeah, I mean, and that's definitely something that obviously I touched on when we did the last chat, was, I'm hoping that this series is almost like X-Men, the abridged version, where you can listen to this series, and yes, some things have changed to make it more modernized or to make it work. Like, in Season 2, I'm not going to have them go to space for that whole thing, spoilers, because I just couldn't because in the original comics, the Marvel Universe had already set up that there was space travel and they had space stations and technology like that. Whereas in our universe, it didn't make sense that they would just go to space for, you know, whatever reason, with Dr. Corbo or whatever the hell it was. So yeah, I changed stuff like that, and hopefully by the end of the series, whenever it is an end point, and I'm thinking it's definitely going to be when things get more complicated and to the point that you can't write a coherent story out of it without, you know, having 10 billion people on board. But yeah, certainly with the way it goes, I'm hoping that people can listen to the series and get X-Men history, yes, slightly altered, but the gist of who these characters are, and you get to basically get taught all this stuff that seems impenetrable, and one of the reasons that people can't take to the comics these days is because it's so almost impenetrable because of the continuity. This kind of gives you a crash course on that continuity, and you get to see how all these characters are and stay true. This series stays true to those characters and faithful to those characters, even if some of the details are changed to make it a little less cheesy or make it fit more with our version of the characters or our version of the series. So, yeah, definitely. Anything else, or?
No, that was my spiel.
Okay, so Omri, why don't we go to you? Most difficult part about portraying Cyclops?
In season 1, there's an episode called Polaris, and in Polaris, Scott gets thrown back, broken through the staircase sort of handrail, and then falls off and is caught telepathically by Jean before he crashes into the ground, which is of course all done with several screams, and nailing that particular scream was a little fun to do. I think my neighbors didn't appreciate me screaming all day long, but I think it worked in the end. That was a good challenge. Scott gets beaten up quite a bit in season 1. Gets tossed around quite a bit in season 1, so grunting and yelling is always fun. But to me, that actually is one of the more challenging aspects of it, just because those can sound so bad, you know, if they're not really done with the right oomph and the right pizzazz. So I think you really need to throw yourself into it, and it's sometimes challenging when you're just sitting at home in front of a microphone. Another one of the great challenges of Scott in season 1 particularly, and I'm sure it's going to be very fun in season 2, is one word that he happens to say quite a few times.
Or a name.
It happens to be a name, and it's Jean, and there's a lot of different ways that you can say Jean. And I'm not talking about the ones you wear. That's always fun.
Those two characters scream each other's names a lot.
Yeah. So I think
Scott.
There's some episodes that half my lines are just Jean in various incarnations of the name. So that's always fun to do, and just to play with them. I always feel bad because I end up sending Carl an audio sample about like 40 different Jeans. He just has to sort of sift through.
Look, I definitely prefer that than if you sent me one that didn't work and then I have to ask for it again.
No, that's true. That's true. At least you find one that'll do, right?
Absolutely. I mean, like, you've asked me the question as to which take I use, because obviously you do multiple takes. Sometimes it depends. Sometimes I'll mix and match. Sometimes it'll be down to maybe there's a click in there that in one take, so I won't use that take because there's, you know, a little sound in the background or something that I can't get rid of. So yeah, and sometimes it's just down to the performance. I mean, the bottom line is you guys are reading from a text. So unless I write, you know, really context in there, words are very flat. You've got to read into the words and see what the original intent was. You know, you can't, unless you write in brackets sarcasm. You know, you can't tell how the line's supposed to be said. So you've got to kind of see the scene and see how it's supposed to be said.
The fear of repeating myself of what I said in the last podcast, it's reading the words behind the words.
Mm-hmm.
It's reading the intent rather than just what's on the page.
I mean, a good example, and this isn't on X-Men, but a good example was I edited the first episode of Long Halloween altogether, put it up on the podcast version, but then I found that when I started editing it to the panels for the video version, the way the performance was didn't necessarily match the panels. So for Natalie, I sent her the picture of the panel and said, can you redo it for the video version as if she's saying it as she's jumping, because that's what she's doing in the panel. Whereas that's not in the original script, where you're just working off the script of the audio version. So it's adding that visual element is also a factor with the new one. Like even Omri, I sent him a thing saying I changed the line, and then obviously if in the audio version, but then when the video version's on, you see the little speech bubble that has the word in, and he's saying a different word. So you can you do it the original words, because that way it'll match up to what's on screen, kind of thing. So that adds another element to it, and that's something I'm hoping to do with X-Men in Season 2, is add it, because obviously in Season 1 it was more of a, because I was adapting the really cheesy stuff from the 60s and the stuff that really doesn't hold up. This is the era that had the Mole Man as a villain. So obviously I'm adapting more the general gist of the storyline and taking out a lot of the cheesier elements. Whereas Season 2 is where Claremont comes in, and I can, even though there's a lot of stuff that I definitely are like that, and I'm not including things like the first episode of Season 2 will be a straight up adaptation of Second Genesis of the Krakoa stuff. So and I've literally line by line almost adapted the thing. So obviously I can edit that to the panels, and it'll make the video version a bit more dynamic, I think, rather than just being a nice credits and then it just goes to a picture, that kind of thing. So yeah, anything else from you?
Well, just very quickly, one of the things with Scott is that he is supposed to be sort of this Boy Scout kind of character, very straight-laced and a nice guy and all that. And it's been trying to find those moments throughout the season to give a little bit of edge here and there. Just try to find a little bit of ways that you can play around, give him a little bit of an attitude at certain points. He's still, especially in Season 1, coming into the role. So, I mean, it'll be a lot of fun in Season 2, especially with Rex, who we're having a lot of fun already in Batman, doing stuff together to do Wolverine and Cyclops stuff. Because that's, full-on antagonism to the max.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's another thing about how Season 1, both the comic that was done a couple of years ago, which anybody hasn't read, I highly recommend, where they did basically what we did, where they took the original stories from the 60s and made it more modern and more, realistic. But I think definitely in both versions, one of the things that he's done is give Jean kind of gets more of a three-dimension, I think, with obviously her backstory, with the whole thing with her childhood, where she, the car crash and all that kind of stuff, and that whole thing's built in, and then obviously with Phoenix and that later on. Whereas I think a lot of people, their views on Cyclops is from the 90s series, where he didn't get a lot of dimension. Whereas it's nice to go back and tell the story of his, his brother and his long lost dead family and all this kind of stuff to add that dimension to him. So Thaddeus, what about you? I mean, obviously your main character's Toad, so you don't get an incredible amount of lines, but you do a bunch of others. So what's the most difficult part of portraying any of your characters that you found?
To be honest, it's the selections that I have to make. When it comes to a character, I have so many voices in my catalog that I can pull from. I have to actually let go of some things that I think would really be fitting for the character, that I don't want to sell the character short, so to speak. I know that Toad was kind of a background character. He had a little bit of the starring role, sort of co-starring role in Lockdown, but by and large, he's the toady, if you will, the guy who was accenting one of the bad guys, and that's an important role. So with that, I started making him more Peter Lorre-ish. I wanted the whole master, the stooped over, following through, the submissive reactions. And yeah, originally when I was working with him, I kept doing the Boston accent from X-Men Evolution, if anyone remembers that. Yeah. So, and I'm having similar problems with the new stuff. When I sent you that huge shotgun audition of each of the voices, I have so many to go through for, like, what are they of the Hellfire Club. I had so many various accents and variations on my voice to go through, I couldn't figure out which one to settle with. So I just went with the one that I felt strongest, and that's pretty much my number one issue.
Yeah. I think Toad is another one that's sort of, I kept him in the form that he was in the original comics, which was that kind of, he's submissive to Magneto, but he also gets to that moment where he turns against him at the end, which was in the original. I think it was in like a crossover thing in the original source material, but I adapted that because I think it gives him, I think that's a nice transition for him out of that kind of master role to being more of a complex character later on when he comes back. But he doesn't come back for a long ass time, so it's a good job you're going to choose some different characters. A lot of the people who were around in the early 60s era disappear for a long time. So, you know, which is why a lot of the characters, Gina and Scott stay around, Xavier stays around, some of the original team come back occasionally, but they really did, when the All New All Different hit, they completely restarted the team, whole new team, and then those became the iconic characters. So it was kind of, that's where X-Men as we know it started, with Chris Claremont and things like that. All right, got a question here in the chat from Stephen. What is one piece of advice that you would give to someone getting into voiceover work or performing a character role? So I'll go to Natalie first.
Probably actually what Stephen said before was that thinking about not can you do an impression of someone, like, but can you do that impression whilst reciting Shakespeare? Can you say a recipe as the, like, really solidifying the traits of the voice that you're using, rather than just putting on an accent. Like, figure out what it is that changes between how your mouth is set when you speak and how that character's mouth is set, and how their tongue works and how their jaw works. So the physical differences, and then sort of practicing not just saying the lines that you have, but can you read anything as that character? Is it actually a character, or is it just a silly impression? Like, really pushing into making it a character that you could do anything in that voice rather than just what you've been given, because then you'll connect with them a lot more and it'll feel a lot more real.
Yeah. I feel like Omri, obviously you'll have the most to say on this question because you're doing this professionally at the moment. So.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk specifically about the audio drama stuff that we've been doing. Just because Cyclops is quite similar to my voice, you know, it doesn't mean that you don't have to think about differences and where the emotion is coming from and how they might speak cadence-wise and everything. When you were originally starting out developing the series, you were also thinking about the characters' ages as being young, quite young, like 16 as the main cast, and then you age it up a few years. I mean, still sort of young, but not quite as young originally. So my voice naturally is lower than Cyclops to a certain extent, you know, and my intonations are different. So, you know, you have to think about all those elements when you're doing it. You know, when you're emphasizing a word, you go up or down, and how would they do it, and making it natural. Talking about Batman, for instance, which of course is much more of a departure than my speaking. Normally, I was walking around a lot and trying to get physically into that space, because your voice affects your whole body. You know, it comes from within you, and how you stand and how you sit and how you move also affects the way you speak. So I was doing a lot of walking around, particularly at night for Batman, sort of muttering to myself, you know, I believe in Gotham City, kind of thing, you know, just over and over, repeating those words and just sort of talking to myself and trying to get into the headspace, because, you know, particularly with that character, he is so much coming from a very particular place that you have to think about that. Do you mean? Absolutely. I mean, what's so great about, I mean, I don't want to talk about Batman the whole time, but what's so great about Batman is the psychological aspects behind all the characters and the character of Batman himself. You know, and you have to think about that with all of your characters. You know, why is Toad, for instance, coming from that place of subservience? You know, why is his voice that way? Why do certain people speak that way? And it's, you know, psychological as well. You have it in real life. You often find the shy kids speak quietly and softly. Why? Because they're shy. They don't want to be heard, you know, and they don't pronounce as well their words. So, I mean, all of those aspects are there in the psychological, you know, relevance for their characters and the people behind them.
The physicality is really useful, though. Like, it's probably a good job that no one actually films while I'm recording, because I will. There's so much else that goes into it other than just what your voice is producing. So
absolutely,
she starts off as that shy character. So I was. You can't really see my hands. There was a lot of sort of nervous, obviously trying not to make a noise into the microphone, but I had a lot of nervous hand actions going on. And then I don't really want to spoil it too much, but obviously when I was recording the Phoenix lines, there was a lot of big actions were happening, and
sort of holding out your arms in the pose.
And Catwoman. Again, we don't want to talk about Batman too much, but getting the difference between Selina and Catwoman, because Catwoman is sort of Selina but bigger and with this more cat-like persona on top of what she already has. So Selina is quite sort of sensual and soft, but, you know, very confident, whereas Catwoman, it turns into that sort of, I get a lot of hand movements going on, but it really helps, I find, in actually getting the rhythm and the little quirks.
Yeah, and I think another thing in that another thing in that script as well is I didn't list it as Bruce when he's speaking as Batman. It's listed as Batman when he's speaking as Batman, Bruce when he's speaking as Bruce, and the same thing for Selina and Catwoman, because in that story you're not supposed to know that Selina is. I mean, obviously everybody knows, but you're not supposed to know in that story that Selina is. So it's kind of almost two different characters, it's two different identities, which is how they kind of see themselves, I guess. What were you saying, Stephen? Go on.
I was just about to mirror exactly what Omri and Natalie said. Even as Colossus, I have to speak as Peter and as Colossus. And when he's Colossus, the chest comes out. I actually, behind the mic, I've puffed my chest out and I will break you, kind of. I really, you know, well, you have to get into it. He's a big, powerful, you know, character, and you've really got to, well, sell it, yeah. As Omri said, definitely.
I mean, there really is a reason why they've started putting, you know, video cameras and capture what voice actors do when they're recording their voices. There's tapes of Robin Williams record Aladdin, you know, in the genie part of that, and sort of all of his gestures and things. See what he's doing, and then you see what they animated afterwards, and not half of which because he ad-libbed half the stuff he's saying, and they had to reanimate it, but also the stuff he was doing was so genius that they had to sort of change it. You know, the same reason why they're putting the same reason why they're putting motion capture on voice actors to get those different things, because they realize it's not just because you're doing voice acting doesn't mean you're just a talking head. You know, your whole body is doing it. I mean, if you are just a talking head, it's your whole face is doing the elements, not just your mouth moving up and down and flapping, escaping words. So there's all those points that come with it.
Oh, yeah.
Stephen or Thaddeus, do you have anything to add to that particular question?
Above all else, be fearless. Don't be afraid to actually go for something, even if you feel it's outside of your comfort zone. I went for villains in X-Men because I liked all the villains in X-Men. For Batman Long Halloween, I said, why not? I'll try for Batman, and I came out with this very squeaky very soft-spoken Batman that did not work. So I went back to what I'm safe with, which would be serial killers and monsters. And I spend most of the day sulking around my house, stalking like most of the characters. When it comes to like Toad, I'm actually hunched over and speaking. And one of the reasons he's always such a he has such a hiss to his voice is I realized he had a really long tongue, so of course he would have these strange intonations and a lot of gross sound effects, which I make into the mic and then send to Carl to see what his reactions will be, especially the spitting and what have you. And I just have fun with it. You just be fearless and have fun.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
if you enjoy it, it comes across in the performance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and something we spoke about when we did when we meet up was something about, obviously this is an amateur production. It's not not any kind of studio, as you can see. This is my setup. This is the computer I did the editing on. So I mean, you're never going to get a chance unless you're cast in one of the animated series or games or something to play these characters. And you maybe these are characters that you've been fans of growing up, and they're kind of your icons of your childhood or characters you've just loved all your life. And this is your chance to be those characters, and you're never going to really get that chance unless I don't know, cosplaying or something. This is kind of the closest thing you can get to, and you can get to do it professionally. Every person who has been cast on this thing has to have a certain audio quality and certain thing, and other than the fact that it is just me editing on my computer, the whole process is done professionally, and I think this is a chance for, again, to be those people. And I think if you definitely, if you are listening to this and you want to be involved in this series, just send me a message. If you've got a good enough quality audio and you've got the voice that's right for the character, I'll put people in it. There's so many X-Men characters, believe me, I need the people. So yeah, people are going to.
I can only do so many.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
People are going to be doubling up this series, and speaking on to that, sort of the accents level, one of the things that's been really hard, the reason this character hasn't been announced, all the other characters have been announced for the second team. Sunfire is one that I'm stuck on because that has so many kind of racial connotations. I'm lucky that the girl who I've cast as Storm is of African descent, so she's doing an African accent, and it's, it doesn't come across as racist any sort of way, even though it wouldn't, obviously, because it's a voice recording. But with a Japanese accent, there's that temptation to go extremely too far. And at the moment, I'm sort of stuck on making sure that even if I do cast a non-ethnic actor, that at least hopefully they've got the voice naturalistic enough that it's not to that level. And I think a lot of the other characters they could be. Doing a Russian accent is, obviously there's that level to it, but I think it's more acceptable. Or doing a German accent or things like that, because there's no racial things in there. But and that's the interesting thing about the second team is it is such an international team, and that's pretty much every one of the new team members is an ethnicity or is a race, and that was kind of the goal of the second team. And certainly as we head in towards season 2 now that season 1 is wrapped up, we're getting out of the era of what people complained about with the original team, where they were all kind of white American teenagers. I know I turned Angel British, but because that voice just worked for him, where I got that audition from Robert. But they are all, white middle class people. Whereas that completely changes for the second team. So it's a lot of fun to have all those different voices, but again, it's finding the person who can do that voice convincing enough that it's not just them doing a voice, if that makes sense. All right then, so a couple of questions that I would like to ask. I'll start with Declan, because you haven't spoken in a while. What's your favourite episode that you've done so far? One that you think was your most fun to work on, or that you're most proud of?
Well, the most musical content I had wrote episode 5, 6, and finale, but my personal favourite would be episode 5. Just the battle for Genosha was great fun to write for.
All right, go to screen. Stephen, you haven't spoken in a while. What about you?
Oh, well. The most voice acting one so far, as far as emotion was concerned, and strangely enough, the one that I'm kind of most proud of is Beast's own story in episode 10.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
I really did. I really enjoyed going for that, and I really acted my heart out. Bless my socks. Yeah, I really enjoyed the whole range that was in there of emotions, and again how it affected my performance and how I said the lines and did the role. It was really a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, that's one thing that I definitely consciously did in season 1 was give every character their episode. And for some characters that was backstory. For some characters like Beast, it was an evolution because obviously everybody knows he turns into the blue furry beast, and how does he get to that? But also for some other characters, it was just them being the focus of the story. Like with Sentinels, it was focused on Robert's Warren, where he's kind of the main character because his dad's involved and all that kind of stuff. Which was, I think you get to know these characters. I mean, I said this before on the last one. Angel and Iceman are definitely the two hardest to write for in terms of that kind of stuff, because they don't, until Warren gets turned into Archangel, for those of you who know that story, he doesn't really have that much that goes on with him. And Iceman disappears for a long time after this. He's just kind of the comic relief and the every guy. But it's nice to have one of them on the team, and I think I've used him as kind of the comic relief. As the guy who says all the funny quips kind of thing, which is a fun part on its own, rather than not everybody can be this deep, tortured character, you know. Natalie, what about you? Your favourite, or one you're most proud of?
Well, again, I think the one I'm most proud of is probably episode 4, which is Jean focused, because there was a lot of meaty stuff there to get to grips with, and that was... that was really enjoyable and interesting to work with. But one of the things I love about Jean's character, as I said before, she's got a lot more to her than what you see in the original TV series. But also the fact that there was room for her to grow over the series. So actually, I really enjoyed some of the later episodes, like the finale, because I could really show like what she turned into, where she was going. She started out, the very first thing you hear is her being this nervous first day at school young girl, meeting everyone and just being quite shy. And then by the end, she's taking charge. She's being assertive. She's openly strong. Like she has this great relationship with Cyclops that's established now, but she also has these other great relationships with Polaris, and being able to have the girly chat moment. So she has become such a rounded character by then. I just really enjoyed the final episodes.
Well, Omri, what about you?
I'm gonna go with Declan on this. Genosha was probably my favorite to work on, and definitely to listen back to and hear. The second part of Genosha, so that's episode 6, where sort of they're caught under the rubble, and it just sort of opens up with these inner monologues that we're having, and then sort of the conversation. Just the music, Declan, again, amazing work. I've said this to you many times, but it's worth repeating. Seriously, amazing work. It just elevates everything and drives all that we do in the scenes and all that everyone is doing. And I remember, hitting play on episode 6 when it came out, and I was sort of doing something, and then it just comes on, and I was immediately like, whoa, okay, I got to focus on this one. I can't be doing something else on this. I can't be, tidying up or whatever. I'm going to sit down and actively, very committedly listen to this, because it just grabbed me so much. And everyone's work on that was really stellar. Really, really stellar. And it was just a thrilling, climax to the middle of the show, taking on Magneto, the most famous of the X-Men villains. So, yeah.
Right, Darius, What about you?
I know Lockdown was kind of the villain's moment to shine, but I really enjoyed doing that because it gave all of the villains a chance to do something besides act sinister and or snarky. There's a lot of posturing that goes on in the prison sequences, of course, but that's part of the characters. You can tell that they're kind of growing and developing new ideas and new personas for themselves in that situation, mostly because they have a plan and they need to execute it, and they have to break out of their traditional roles using only the tools that are given to them.
Well, because
And
Magneto isn't there for him to be subservient too, so he's the most interesting thing he gets to do in there is he gets this kind of friendship with Blob, and they become kind of sort of a twosome from that point
exactly.
onwards.
Well, exactly, and that continues on into the finale, more or less, in which you actually hear more inflections in Toad's voice instead of the traditional, the subservience. You hear more of a like shock and surprise, which I hope bled through very well. When I listened to it, you're your own worst judge. So, like, I could have added
I'm
some
always
smart.
impressed by your ability to do the when you're supposed to be like vomiting on somebody, you get the sound just right to kind of the splat kind of thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm most proud of those, actually. I consider them my babies. So.
Well, TV can make good splat noise.
Yes. Well, the one thing I'm gonna do and put up on the feed is I've been working on kind of a blooper reel because I've got some fantastic just outtakes from things people send me. I mean, obviously with Omri and Natalie, if you have any, send them to me because you two are very professional and you just send me the finished versions. If you have any outtakes or any kind of flub kind of thing, send them to me so you can be in it as well. But I have some classic ones from some of the others. There's one of John chasing his cat out the room and in the middle of his take that he left in for just that purpose. So I'll put that up on the feed. But yeah, it's always fun to hear people getting into the character at the start of it, and you can hear the thing happening. All right, so I'll open it up. I mean, anything any of you want to ask me or speak about yourselves? Go ahead.
And then there was silence.
Well, the only thing that I would ask is exactly the same question that I asked last time, which is, okay, everything stops now. Where are you going from here? What projects do you have planned? What's these little glimmers of ideas that you have in your mind?
I've started working on an original one that I will bring forward once, obviously things are further along with these. I've got a couple of original stories that I've got that I want to do. That it's kind of ones that I always thought I'd do as just kind of a short story or something like that, but I can adapt it to be an audio drama just to kind of to fit in with this thing. And obviously, once it's my own original characters, I can start turning it into more of a business rather than just a hobby thing on the side. But as I say, for right now, having fun doing these. There's a reason that the X-Men ones are turned out so quickly because I just get into them. It just kind of pours out of me when I'm writing them, and just kind of because with Long Halloween, I'm just literally reading the book and writing down the words, and that's you're almost just been copying at that point. And it's obviously fun to add the bits to, but it's more obviously from a writing standpoint, not editing, of course. Long Halloween is amazing, but just purely from a writing standpoint, X-Men is the one that I'm like, yes, I can't wait to just get through this script because you're getting to create as well as adapt kind of thing. So obviously, once it becomes more original stuff, that'll be even more so. So because everything's open, I could do whatever I want at that point. So, yeah. Anything else anybody wants to talk about?
Ladies
sorry,
first.
you go first.
Mine was actually more in the realm of the comics. I can tell you have a very strong Marvel sway, and with Long Halloween, that's DC. Were you thinking of branching out not so much thinking of it? Are you a fan of any other of the publishers, or do you stick to the main big two?
Well, I did get that question. I do apologise for somebody who asked that. I will find who put it on the Facebook page. Jason Thayer? Jason. Who is a follower of ours. He was asking me whether I'd do, other Marvel ones like Spider-Man or something like that. At the moment, I've got a lot on my plate doing these, and I also want to do original stuff, so I haven't got any plans for it at the moment. But I'm a fan of a lot of the stuff. I mean, like everybody, I go and see all the movies when they come out and stuff like that. I'm a fan of all the characters. These are my two that I'm passionate about. X-Men and Batman, they are my two. Probably because I'm a 90s kid, and it's kind of like those are the two characters, from the animated shows, things like that. Those were the ones that were big at that time when I was growing up. So you got these great animated shows as a kid that got you into the characters, and then obviously the movies and things later on as you grew up. And it's a world you can dive into. But yeah, I'm open to the idea of doing other characters and other things like that. I mean, I've read other stuff. One thing that's interesting that I've been asked when we were speaking about this, as I say, last month. I'm not necessarily a comics person because I'm over here in England. Comics aren't really a huge thing over here. I got into the characters through other media and then got into it and then dived into the comics because I wanted more of it or wanted to hear these stories that everybody says is really good. With X-Men in particular, people, I say, oh my god, I enjoyed the Dark Phoenix stuff, and people are like, well, you should read the original one. It's even better, and you get a lot more depth and complexity, and you get this ongoing soap opera that never ends, and there's so much more stories that are told with these characters that could be adapted, and that's how I got into it and just dived headlong into that. And with Batman, it was a case of, what are the best ones? Well, Long Halloween, Killing Joke, Dark Knight Returns. I just went through and read all the list, so it's mainly those two, but I have other characters that I'm interested in. I watch all the shows, watch all the movies and things like that. It's just these are the ones that I'm passionate about. So, Natalie, what were you going to say?
I was going to ask if there were any characters that would bring you to the other side of the production process. Are there any characters that you personally would actually really love to play rather than just write for?
I'd love to do Wolverine, but I don't think I've got a deep enough voice because I've always loved that character. And I know it's my two favorite characters are Wolverine and Magneto, which is kind of the most popularist thing to say but that's probably why I enjoy the movies so much. Whereas other people are like, oh god damn it, it's about Wolverine and Magneto again. But even though I am oversaturated, especially with Wolverine in the comics, there's too much of him definitely. I'm still a fan of those characters, even if there is too much. It's kind of like I'm a fan of Batman. Batman is completely overexposed as well, but it's because he's a great character, you know what I mean? And also Magneto.
It's because he's Batman.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm Batman. But yeah, definitely Magneto. I adore that character, and I think you can tell from the scripts that we've turned out so far that I'm a fan of Magneto, because there's a lot of Magneto being a badass and doing his amazing speeches as he's throwing everybody around and things like that. I just love how, he's kind of the best of both worlds. He's got this kind of grand, Darth Vader, he's kind of this villain that has this amazing theatrical look, but he also has this element of also being a sort of an anti-hero, and he's got this amazing complex backstory and things like that, and getting to hear Daniel, who did such an amazing job doing sort of a Ian Mckellen, he's doing his own thing, but he's definitely an Ian McKellen style voice he's doing, to read those lines. And it got to the point that, speaking of the characters, it got to the point as I was writing the scripts, probably about halfway through when we went into production, I was writing the scripts as we were already recording, and I was getting the stuff through. I was hearing your guys' voices in my head as I was writing it. Like you had become the characters, and I was almost writing for your voices at that point, as opposed to just the characters in general, which does happen, and obviously there's certain characters that have a certain tone to them that you expect to hear, like the Joker that John's going to be doing in Long Halloween is definitely Mark Hamill-ish. Ian McKellen is obviously He's definitely the Magneto influence at this point, even though he's supposed to be like Russian, German, Polish, but he's come out as British, so whatever. Xavier is British now because of Patrick Stewart. There's iconic performances that make those characters sound a certain way. Definitely, you can hear the Kevin Conroy influence to the voice that you do as Batman, Omri. There's certain people that influence that voice, but to get back to the original question, definitely Wolverine and Magneto. I'd adore to do them, but there's people who can do them better. I only do the occasional sort of fill-in voice, like I'm the voice of the Sentinels, but a bit highly modulated, and I do the occasional, like I was the Controller, and just voices where it's like, there'll be like 2 lines, and I'll be like, oh god, nobody will want to play this, so I'll just do a fill-in, so long as there's not too much of me in it. Yeah. One question I do want to ask all of you is, how much did you know of this stuff before you started doing it? Like, were you a big fan of X-Men, or has this been something that, like, oh, X-Men, I like the movies, and then you learn a lot about these characters through doing these and kind of become more fans through doing these? Declan, start with you.
I'd watched a couple of the movies, listened to the scores, obviously, and while working on it, I've been getting more into the X-Men side. Personally, I was more of a DC person. I've been into kind of the Batman things ever since Christopher Nolan's takes, and since then, I know a lot about the background, which is helping a lot with Long Halloween. But working on the project is definitely getting me more into the X-Men universe, starting to read a bit more about it.
Natalie, what about you?
For me, X-Men, like I said before, was what I watched as a child. I played X-Men in the playground. I was always Rogue, and yeah, but it was based on the '90s cartoon. I didn't read any X-Men comics for a very long time, and I still haven't really delved into that very much. I enjoyed the films when they came along. I still like to pretend that the third one did not happen.
Yeah. Well, it didn't now. They all didn't happen. Other than the First Class, they don't count anymore.
So the X-Men always hold a special place in my heart. As far as Batman's concerned, again, it was more about the wider media than the comic books. Like Batman, for me, I loved the classic TV series with Adam West. It's just brilliant. And I said this controversial statement when we met up last month. Like, there is always a place in my heart for the George Clooney, Batman and Robin, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, I love dark Batman, but I also love Batman when it's at its campest as well. But again, I don't know, like, I couldn't tell you a lot of the more intricate plot points of Batman. I don't really read the comics, so it's all sort of what's been in the more accessible media with Batman. I play the Arkham Asylum, Arkham Origins games, and watch the films. But other than that, that's all I know.
I mean, we're getting to a point now where the other media and the movies and the games and stuff are starting to educate people on the actual characters, because the other media is now being so faithful to the source material, which is, there's so much of it now. It's kind of an unprecedented time we're living in now, where the comics are held at such high regard, which is nice to see for a change. Omri?
Well, starting off with the Star Trek stuff, when we did that, I didn't know anything really about Star Trek. I caught a couple episodes here and there, and remember moments of seeing the Patrick Stewart, ones as a kid, now and then again, but that was new to me. And then X-Men, similarly, I didn't know hugely about X-Men. I mean, I remember catching the show as a kid every now and then, but never sort of keeping with the continuity and watching it religiously or anything, and being educated through sort of the popular media of the films that came out definitely educated me on that. And then Batman, that's a different story, because Batman is cool. Batman, not that they're not cool other characters, but like Batman is like Batman. I mean, there's no arguing about that. He is a unique character in the pantheon of heroes, mostly because he's just a man, which creates all those psychological things we talked about earlier. And the '90s show with Kevin Conroy was something that I did watch, and it was a great show, and really actually created a lot of the continuity in the Batman world. For instance, Harley Quinn was invented on that show.
Mr. Freeze as well.
Mr. Freeze, yeah, his
Not
whole
the character, but
but his whole backstory with his wife. So, I watched that show a lot. Loved that show. That educated me a lot. But I never really read the comics until more recently, where they just were lying around, and I decided, oh well, that's cool. Let's read that and figure it out. And I'd actually read Long Halloween before we started doing it, and loved the story. So it's been great to work on. Absolutely. And Adam West has been my real influence on Batman now. I don't know how you think, Conroy. I mean,
you can hear that. It comes through.
I think so.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Just Batman is a thing with that character is that, and I mean with all comics really, you can get into the really kiddified stuff when you're a kid, but then there's the more teenage stuff as you grow up, and then it seems like as you grow older, the more you can delve into different levels of the character because there's so much of it, and that goes for all comics really. Stephen?
Oh, for me, well, I started out many years ago. As far as Star Trek was concerned, it was on a Sunday afternoon, I think. And that was the old James T. Kirk ones, the first season, the first set, I guess, I don't know, of Star Trek ones, and I really enjoyed those, especially when you look back on them as an adult, and they actually tried to tackle ideas of race and sexism and so on and so forth. It really tried a forward-thinking approach looking back as an adult, but I didn't realise that as a kid. And with the X-Men, I read the comics religiously, but I couldn't get them from my corner shop anymore with my pocket money. The local shop stopped selling them, stopped getting them in, and I never had access to them. And
you almost have to go to Forbidden Planet these days.
Yeah. I never had access to the comics anymore, and so it basically disappeared from my life. But in my later years, almost my whole life I've been a gamer. But in the later years, they've actually started releasing, superhero games that are done right. Everybody remembers the Hulk and Spider-Man travesties of games, but then came things like Batman, Arkham Asylum, and just those games. They are how you do a superhero.
Oh yes.
And that's kind of where I rejoined the whole comic and Marvel and DC universes both. I pretty much lost contact with them for almost my entire life, bar up to that point. Didn't even really get to see the movies either. But that was only because I'd be away on deployment or something like that, so you just don't get to see things like that.
Yeah.
So.
I think some are worth it if you haven't seen. In terms of X-Men, X-Men 1's okay. It sets the tone, and there is some good stuff about it, but it definitely is room for improvement. X2 is fantastic. I think it's one of the best ones. X3, Origins. I mean, Beast is really good in X3, and Kitty's really good. They've got elements that are right, but they just how can you screw up the Dark Phoenix saga so incredibly by trying to make 3 movies at once? That's how you do it. And you're doing the Dark Phoenix saga, so you kill off Cyclops. Okay, well done. But yeah, they Origins was even worse.
I did see one of them, which is the one where Deadpool is one of my favourite characters of all time.
Yeah, that's Origins. Yeah.
What did they do to him?
He was Baraka from Mortal Kombat. That's what he.
The thing is, I actually saw the what was it? The kind of like the director interview You know, where they were talking about how they, and they were like, "Yeah, we know what we did to Deadpool. Come at us."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's one of the things. Days of Future Past, First Class was fantastic, and the Days of Future Past was even better. They've got themselves back on track, and now that they've kind of rebooted it with Days of Future Past, now they can do whatever they want and get right the characters they got wrong. I mean, they've announced they're doing Cyclops, they're doing Nightcrawler, they're doing Storm in the next movie. It's like finally getting all these characters, and they're doing a Deadpool movie and a Gambit movie and things like that. So they're getting things back on track, and hopefully they don't screw it.
I'm hoping as well with the deals that are starting to happen with Sony and letting Spider-Man into the Marvel universe, that maybe they'll sort of get a deal as well with Fox, the X-Men ones, and the Ms. Marvel film that's coming out will actually have a Rogue origin story done right in there as well.
I'd love to see that happen, but I don't think it is. I think the relationship between Fox and Marvel is much more sour. I think Sony and Marvel have been able to work together in the past. I mean, if you just look at Marvel's advertising, Spider-Man's still been all over it, even though it's not been in the movies. X-Men's completely disappeared from Marvel's thing, and they've even just cancelled the Fantastic Four comic altogether. So, and they've been doing certain things like making, disassociating Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch from Magneto, and yeah, there's a bit more of a sour relationship going on there. And I was speaking about this to my friends last night. I said, I don't think Marvel will ever get X-Men back, at least no time soon, because the movies are making money and they're good. Whereas Fantastic Four, I think this movie this year is probably going to bomb, and they'll just get the rights back. They'll probably get that back, but I don't think they'll ever get X-Men back. And I think X-Men has enough characters to support its own universe anyway. I think it has as much popular characters as the Marvel universe. I mean, I'd love to see these characters interact, but I think I'm happy with X-Men being on its own more than I am with any of the others. The others kind of work better as part of the Marvel Universe. I think X-Men works okay on its own. I mean, our one is on its own. We don't have, Spider-Man swinging in at the end of season 1, do you know what I mean? So,
oh, do we?
No, stay tuned after the credits for
the
the after credits teaser of our thing of season 1, the special edition with Spider-Man put in there like George Lucas. Thaddeus, what about you? Your familiarity with this stuff before you started doing it?
Oh, I have no idea what cartoons and comics are. No. No, I have an unhealthy obsession with all these things. I've been reading comics since, my first few comics were Marvel, and as I got older and I realized that there were things like Hellblazer and Transmetropolitan and Sandman, for God's sakes, I started going into DC and pulling from that, and later on, and that always translated into the cartoons and what have you, because that's just how they go together. They hold hands quite well, and
yeah, the animated shows tend to be much more faithful than the movies until lately.
Well, it's strange that DC's movies. We'll see with Batman versus Superman, the custody battles or whatever they're calling it.
The custody battles.
It's Batman v Superman.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
we'll see where they go with that.
I think it's just a fight. I don't think they're going to be fighting over anything in particular.
Yeah, but the animated stuff for DC is always very good, and with Marvel, Disney is really pushing hard for a lot of good Marvel stuff as of late. We'll see what happens in the near future.
Let's put it this way: Disney are doing fantastic with the Marvel movies. The animated shows, not so much. They keep cancelling all the good ones. It's really
I've noticed. Well, they are pushing for that Guardians of the Galaxy show. Well, but we'll see where that happens.
Here's the thing with what's happening with animated series these days. So this is a tangent, but the animated series these days, it seems like the networks aren't happy. Like even if the ratings are huge, they're not happy that more adults are tuning in than kids. So now basically the Bruce Timms and that are being kicked out, and they're wanting to make more kiddified shows. So they're cancelling Young Justice and replacing it with Teen Titans Go, or they're cancelling Earth's Mightiest Heroes and replacing it with Ultimate Spider-Man, and these very kiddified, very cartoony cartoons, which is fine, but it's just they're getting rid of these quality animated series nowadays because they want more kids than adults. So. But anyway,
they got to get those toy sales.
Yeah.
But no, I've been, and of course, role-playing games are added onto that. Basically, what I'm saying is I am the worst kind of nerd. If the profile picture hasn't told you enough with the fingerless gloves and the spectacles, but no, I just love the stuff, and I've been in it since I could remember. And here I am now voicing one of the villains, or several of the villains, which I've always kind of had a love for, because they've always had more of a story than the superheroes, which is strange.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just to wrap up here, I think it's season 1 was very fun. It was kind of the foundation of everything. Also, we're getting to explore these characters who people didn't know that was the original 5 or that these were the original stories. But I think X-Men is this ongoing soap opera more than any other. Comics are kind of like that anyway, but X-Men more than any other, with all the relationships and the family dynamics and things like that. It's this ongoing soap opera. And that never finishes. There will be, I think, I've got it planned through to season 3 at this point. The most I'll probably do is season 4 or so, because once it gets to the point that there's too much to adapt, I think that possibly be where I kind of jump off. But for right now, I'm having a lot of fun doing it. We're going to do all the stuff in between and just keep growing this thing, and hopefully you guys who watch these keep enjoying our stuff, just hopefully it continues to grow. If you enjoy these, just keep telling your friends about it. Rate us on iTunes, like us on iTunes and YouTube, and plug us away, and let's get this thing as big as it can go. I mean, I just literally had to upgrade it to the Podomatic site that hosts our podcast. I originally had to upgrade to the first tier of Pro, and I paid for that back in September. And then we started maxing out that amount of downloads, so now I've had to pay for the second tier. So now Long Halloween's on the first tier of Pro, but X-Men is now on the second tier, where it's getting 800 to 1,000 downloads a week, which is fantastic. That's not even counting the YouTube viewers as well. So that is like yesterday, that update I just sent out saying that this thing was going on automatically 150 downloads. So we know how many subscribers we've got that because I didn't plug it anywhere. So. It's fantastic that that many people are. I mean, as I say, X-Men, it's popular, and I think we're doing a good enough job with it that people are enjoying it. I mean, obviously, as they come out, there are things that being a perfectionist and being the person who did it, there's things I look back on and go, oh, that could have been done better, or that could have been done better. But I think, it's one of the. I'm doing it as I'm a fan. And I feel like if I'm listening to it and I love it, then that means that other X-Men fans are going to love it. And the same thing for Batman and the Star Trek one that we did. I think as long as I'm geeking out to it, I know that you guys will be, because I'm a fan of it, as much or more than you guys are listening. So hopefully you guys continue to enjoy it as we go on to season 2, which will be where we start getting into the really iconic stuff. As I say, we've cast Wolverine, Colossus, Nightcrawler. We've already got a Banshee. We've got, so we're going to be doing the second Genesis, Phoenix, Dark Phoenix, all that stuff is coming in season 2, which will be starting in about a month's time. I'm starting to get all the stuff together for it now. We're already getting stuff. Hopefully to get it out to you quicker than we did this season, because I'm a lot of people, as I suggested, are sending in stuff in bulk. So I've got like up to episode 4 with Wolverine, Jean, and Cyclops already. Same thing for Long Halloween. I've got a lot of stuff in bulk, so hopefully we can get it out. I mean, obviously, Declan, that means more work for you, but we'll obviously as quick as we can get these productions together, we will, and hopefully there won't be any hold-ups this time in getting them out to you.
And in the meanwhile, you can tune in to the Batman Long Halloween.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Little plug.
Plug. Yeah, it's on the same channel. If you haven't checked that out, if you're just a listener of the X-Men series, the Long Halloween has begun. It's going really well. I think it's benefiting from us already doing 2 series, because I think the quality and the editing and the performances and everything is just top notch. It just is amazing so far. So, and
we have a motion comic as well on it. So
we do, yes. On this YouTube channel, subscribe, click that subscribe button below. You get the video version where it's edited to the panels and kind of a motion comic almost. Hopefully I get to do that with the X-Men stuff as well, but definitely the Batman. That's what I'm going to be doing. Is there anything anybody wants to say before we sign off?
Just thank you. Yeah, thank you.
To everyone who's listening, I'm I didn't know it was that many, 800 to 1,000. Like, I'm thrilled that so many people are finding us and enjoying it and coming back for more. So thank you all very, very much.
Absolutely. Thank you to everyone out there, particularly all the Genes out there. I want you to think that every time I say Gene, I'm saying a different one of your names.
Buddy, you wait until you see. If you've looked at the script for season 2, episode 3 and 4, dear Lord, do you say it a lot? Because for obvious reasons. But yeah, there's a lot of that in those 2 episodes.
It'll be fun.
I'll say goodbye by saying one of my most rehearsed lines for the Batman series: Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday.
That and All My Stars and Garters.
Oh, my stars and yeah, let's not forget that one.
Not an easy line to pull off, as we've discovered. Only so few people can say that and really mean it. Thank goodness we had Kelsey Grammer painted blue and still pulling that line off. So
yeah. And just amazing that the versatility of you being both Beast and now Colossus, and at one point you're going to end up playing both, so that's going to be fun. So
it's going to be interesting.
So yeah, hopefully everybody continues to listen and enjoy it. As I say, it keeps getting bigger. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you in the shows.